This video is brought to you in part by Squarespace. Sonic X Shadow Generations Dark Beginnings has finally dropped. God, what a mouthful. It was a bit later in the day than anyone was expecting, but if you've been on this channel long enough, you know I have no room to criticize. And regardless, it was well worth the wait. In 6 minutes, they managed to show off some top-tier animation, touch on and recanonize little bits of lore, yet still take things in directions I don't think anybody was quite expecting. And they really showed us why Shadow is such a beloved character in this franchise. And this is only part 1 of 3, so that's what we're talking about today. Unless, of course, you're watching this in the inevitable compilation I make of all 3 episodes. If that's the case, hello to you future folks. For those of you who have not yet seen Dark Beginnings, again, it's 6 minutes. Just go watch it. This video is simply here to gush and keep conversations going. I'm too excited not to talk about it. Whenever I'm asked what my favorite Sonic cartoon is, most people expect me to say something like Sonic Sat AM, considering I grew up in that era and I defend the freedom fighters as hard as I do, or maybe Sonic Boom for the laid-back, low-stakes humor. But truth be told, I think these animated shorts we've been getting these last few years have easily been the best of the bunch. There's a reason why everyone demands a whole show is made out of whatever thing we're watching at the time. They're all radically different from each other, but they all work brilliantly, taking on different tones to represent whatever game or character they're following. Sonic Mania Adventures is genuinely charming and funny. The Knuckles short for Frontiers was appropriately somber, and those little Chow cartoons were adorable. And Dark Beginnings nails just about everything you'd want if you are a fan of Shadow. Unlike most of the other shorts, which were brought to us by Powerhouse Animation, Beginnings is brought to us by Studio GigX. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But anyway, yeah, they did a great job with the animation, and the writing was also top tier, and that's no surprise because this was put together by none other than Ian Flynn, who was probably appreciating the chance to finally show off what he can do with Shadow. I still get people complaining about how the Hedgehog was handled in the Metal Virus in my recap video. I can't imagine what the actual writer has to put up with, and I think it's very clear that everyone who put this animation together not only has a deep passion for their job, but also for the subject matter. I was a little worried that the 3D modeling would cheapen the experience, but I have to admit they utilized it brilliantly. The dynamic shots of the fight between Emerald and Shadow, the long hallway shots, the surreal transitions, they really made the right call with 3D animation. The scripting, storyboarding, and again the animation, it's all top tier. And the tone of the piece is appropriately somber and action-packed all at the same time, with splashes of the soundtrack hitting hard, but also knowing when to keep quiet when they really need to let a scene do what it needs to do. This is how you remember Sonic X. This is the kind of thing fans want when they're asking for a new Sonic anime. It has all the cues of traditional adult-oriented anime in all of the right spots. That's all to say, yes, this cartoon is real pretty. The voice work also impressed me. I've never been too big of a fan of Kirk Thornton's take on Shadow, but the dude is a seasoned pro. He's got to do what he's directed to do, and we don't have that same sneering, sinister tone you'd hear from Shadow and Sonic Boom and the like. He takes on a softer tone when speaking with Maria and a more serious one as the story carries on. There's a lot of layers to this performance. Quite the shift considering how jarring it was the first time I heard Kirk's voice in the original release of Sonic Generations. Maria, who is voiced by Stephanie Sheh, also does a solid job. I've not liked a lot of the overly syrupy, sweet takes on the character, as I've heard in the past, and this take still kind of is, but that's also the point of the character, and it's not over the top or obnoxious. She does a really good job. And it's nice to have some things explained about the character, such as the low gravity of the arc keeping her condition in remission. If that was explained in Shadow 2005 or some random Japanese guidebook, I don't know. Point is, you don't have to go searching for those little clues. They're putting it right up front. And it's nice to see Maria and Shadow interact a bit more to better understand why Shadow loves her so much. But I will say, for an episode titled Shadow and Maria, there is not a whole lot of Maria. Once Shadow is shown the Aurora Borealis, Emerald pops onto the scene, and that's about all the time the Hedgehog and the girl get together. I will note again, they had the courage to just call this planet Earth. Yes, I know it's not Mobius, but it's better than Sonic's world. And that's not the only thing they're going to firmly establish either, but more on that later. I was actually expecting Emerald to play a bigger part than what he did, but I think that was sort of the point of the marketing. Just like we saw in the teaser, once the robot arrives, he swaps fisticuffs with Shadow, and the fight is is fantastic. Sirs pointed out to me that they're actually using moves from Sonic Battle, which is a lovely little detail, and another is seeing Emerald use the spin dash only after Shadow did it first, subtly showing that the robot is copying abilities. And you can see that play out as he mirrors moves from Shadow in the fight. It's really, really cool. But as the fight quickly plays out, Shadow goes in for a punch and instead shatters a giant pane of glass, indicating to us that this isn't really happening. Emerald isn't the central antagonist, he's just a memory, one long since past. We had a hint of that right before Shadow confronted the robot once he touched Maria's hand, seeing a quick glimpse of her grim fate. So that's really interesting, and it gets wilder from here. After the Emerald fight, we get a cool, surreal trip through other traumatic memories, such as Gerald's holding cell, making a brilliant use of SA2 imagery that was haunting back in the original game, and it turned it into something truly nightmarish, with yet another long hallway scene, one that extends away from Shadow as he reaches out to save the professor, symbolizing how futile it is. This is the past after all. This already happened. There's nothing Shadow can do to save Gerald. I was also so proud of them for reestablishing that yes, this little girl was indeed gunned down, as we see her get cloud-capped in a thunderstorm, which also gave us a hint of Black Doom's return. And that finally brings us to the present day, with Shadow standing next to a tree on a hillside, very similar to the opening cutscene of his titled game. And then we look up to show us that yes, the moon is still blasted apart like it was at the end of Sonic Adventure 2. Now, how they explain the moon being full elsewhere, I'm not really too worried about it, and I can't imagine a lot of fans who care about the lore are going to care that much either, because let's be real, they really just wanted to see some lasting impact from their favorite games. If you're honed into the canon of the franchise, it's likely you're caring a whole lot about Shadow. The introduction of Knuckles and Angel Island really started kicking off some proper world building, but Knuckles' story was more interesting on a grander scale, with ancient civilizations and the like. Shadow's story is still grand, but it was a lot more personal, and watching the effect he had on the world around him is what kept a lot of fans coming back. So it was nice to see that they aren't only reestablishing a lot of his character, but his impact on the world, which again is firmly established as Earth, and also reestablishing a more literal impact on the moon. I also like that the Ark is still up there, a Robotnik face forever looming in the planet's orbit. It does kind of remind me of Fleetway's version of the Death Egg, at least early on. I've not read all of Fleetway yet. They established that the space fortress had been abandoned and just sat in orbit, and I thought that was a really cool concept. I don't know, abandoned space stations are just really neat, and I've always loved the Death Egg, but I do think the Ark is a little cooler. It's not a blatant Star Wars ripoff, and it has a better name. It also actually does something worthwhile, and again, I think that's why a lot of fans are going to be excited to see that the moon is nice and busted here. I really like the extra touch of the debris floating around. If nothing else, I hope that particular piece shows up more often in Sonic games going forward. These 6 minutes really took us on a trip and messed with expectations, establishing a bit of mystery and planting the seeds of something I think is going to be really special. This is ultimately a promotional piece leading up to the launch of a new game, but man, this is such a step up from the little tie-in comics they'd slap in at the end of Archie issues. Speaking of, the one made for the original Sonic Generations was written by Ian Flynn, and look how far we've come. I'm still not sure if there's going to be much here that's going to be radically different when it's all said and done, both for Shadow or for the world as a whole. From the sounds of what I'm seeing, I feel like this cartoon and the game is going to put Shadow back on track, much like Frontiers did for Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, revisiting old memories and coming to terms with some demons. And going by some parallels I'm seeing between this and some concepts Ian Flynn put out there for Archie Shadow, it might be worth revisiting some of those stories as well. It looks like Shadow will be tempted by Black Doom to go back in time and alter the fate of Maria, only to ultimately have to decide that she has to die. Which, I mean, hey, they had Flash do that, so maybe this is how they get that DC crossover rolling. But seriously, it probably won't be anything too drastic, probably reestablishing Shadow's connection with Team Dark, getting to say goodbye properly to his lost family, and also, on a broader note, this and the game will probably give some of these edgy bad guys a chance to actually stand out in some proper media for a change. But I don't want to speculate too much. Right now, I kind of just want to enjoy the ride and see where this goes, because man, this was incredible, and we've only just gotten started. Every time they come out with a new cartoon, you're gonna see fans all over saying that they need to make a full, proper series. And yes, this is why people get so impatient with the likes of Sonic Prime, because we know what we can really pump out from this franchise if there are the proper people backing it up. I'm glad we're all hyped for the movie, I'm excited for that new skin, but I don't want another Knuckles show, and when this is all said and done, I really want them to start jumping more into animation. If you put out stuff at this level of quality, it doesn't even need to stay at the same tone. It doesn't need to always be dark, but this level of quality will bring in new fans. Even if this is just retreading old ground, maybe they'll take this somewhere unexpected, made, I don't really care as long as this level of quality keeps up. So I'll be back next week to check out episode 2 and see how they do. But until then, thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll see you again soon. Toot toot, Sonic Warriors! Before we wrap up for today, I want to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Squarespace. Jumping online and building up your own brand was always an intimidating thing for me, but Squarespace makes that a streamlined, fast, and easy process, all while making you look good thanks to their Fluid Engine, a next-generation website design tool that lets you tweak any of their many templates with easy-to-use drag-and-drop tools. And I don't need to tell you how useful websites can be, whether you want to build up a portfolio of your work, an art gallery, or a shop, because yes, they have everything you need to run your own online business, including analytics that help show you the strongest avenues of growth and help you build up marketing strategies, which include integration with your favorite social media networks. And they can even help you set up an online shop to sell and distribute custom merch. All you have to do is design it and they'll handle production, inventory, and shipping. Really doesn't get any easier than that. And to make it just a bit easier, if you use my link, squarespace.com/gameapologist, you'll get 14 days for free, which is plenty of time to see if this is right for you. And when you want to make a purchase, that same link will get you 10% off your first order. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring the video. Before we head on out, I do have to thank the folks who support me over on Patreon, and that includes Kyle Winter, Cirrus the Skeptic, Joseph Duncan, Sonic 2 Blue, Josh Strider, Trey Nobles, Hatsworth, Tiny Jericho, Ginger Bob, Jack of All Spades, Tristan Trapp, Meekers, Bo Bennings, Quote, Resident Fanboy, Miles the Prower, Singer J199, Sam Webster, Fish Flop, Lucas Lipker, The Bad Pal, Jonathan Dobbs, Clover Chats, Chad, Mr. SP, Cecil the Glade, The Dark Neon, Stefan Plakanica, 3 Monic, Graham J. Hall, Lenny X, Wayne is Boss, Lederick, David 20 Covers, led a Rick roll to restore the helium. Trash Baphomet, That Pie Remain, Enerjack 5, Grayson Coniger, Xerxes the Renegade Jin, Ken K, Ven 101, Paxton Bisbee, Sindarin 7, Bunny in very fancy font, well done Stevie, Twilord, oh no, I've used up all the helium, what am I meant to do now? Man, you are like 3 chapters behind David, get it together. Eric Delgado, Crimson Rose, Roxas the Cat, Godzilla, Makuta of Salt, Gleam the Anomaly, Alexander Watson, Neil Gampa, Conan Kudo, the Lex the most powerful ship in the 2 universes, Kaido Prower, Spearmint, Duo the Cat, Omega Man 21, Penn Adelaide, Daza S, the world's most unironic 8.5 tail stand, one more Sonic Robot, MT Mecha, I started reading a book on helium this week, couldn't put it down, Gob, the RSI, OGreatGames.com, Sailor Sebensol, sending out an SOS from SS Sanjik, Salem Hollow, Siegfried Wilder, Naburnyard, I hope I'm saying that right. And KB. I am always humbled to see folks popping in here and old names still popping in to help keep this channel up and running. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much for your support, and I'll see you again very soon. Toot toot, Sonic Warriors.